The gathering storm. The space around Jupiter's orbit filled with ships. Thousands upon thousands of massive warships appeared from the darkness between stars. Each vessel stretched over 2 miles long, their hulls gleaming with strange metals that seemed to bend light around them. Gunports lined their sides like the teeth of ancient sea monsters. Engine exhausts glowed with the power of captured stars. Admiral Kethvar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. His forearms crossed behind his back as he watched the final ships of his armada take their positions. The view screen showed an endless parade of destroyers, cruisers, and battleships. 50,000 vessels in total, the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. The admiral's scaled skin was deep blue, marking him as nobility among the Zephyrian people. His yellow eyes had witnessed the conquest of over 100 worlds. Each victory had added new ships to the Imperial fleet, new technologies stolen from defeated races, new slaves to work the mining worlds that fed the ever-growing empire. Status report, he commanded in the universal trade language that all conquered species were forced to learn. Captain Veltar, his second in command, checked the holographic displays floating around the bridge. All battle groups are in position, Admiral. The Krogani heavy assault ships anchor our center line. The Vexian light cruisers provide screening formations. The Thorian siege platforms are ready to begin planetary bombardment. Admiral Kethvar nodded slowly. Each of those species had once believed they could resist the Empire. The Krogani with their thick armor and powerful weapons, the Vexians with their speed and cunning, the Thorians with their massive defensive structures, all had fallen within months of first contact with Imperial forces. And our target? The Admiral asked. The third planet, Admiral. The locals call it Earth. Population approximately 8 billion. They appear to be a single species calling themselves humans. The Admiral moved to his command chair, carved from the bones of the last Keltharian resistance leader. Show me their defenses. The main screen changed to display intelligence gathered by scout ships over the past year. The Admiral saw small metal tubes launching from the planet's surface on pillars of chemical fire. Primitive rockets that barely reached their own moon. A few small stations orbited their world. Simple metal structures that couldn't house more than a few dozen individuals. This is their most advanced military vessel, Captain Veltar said, highlighting a ship floating near one of their orbital platforms. Admiral Kethvar leaned forward. The human warship was perhaps 300 feet long. Its hull looked like simple steel plates welded together. A few missile launchers and energy weapons dotted its surface. He had seen cargo haulers with better armor. How many of these do they possess? Our scouts counted fewer than 200, Admiral. Most are much smaller than this example. The Admiral's mandibles clicked in amusement. His smallest escort vessels were larger than their greatest battleship. A single Imperial destroyer could probably defeat their entire fleet without taking damage. What of their planetary defenses? Primitive chemical explosives and simple kinetic weapons, Admiral. They still use projectile weapons that fire metal slugs. Their energy weapons are barely capable of breaching standard armor plating. They have no shield technology, no faster-than-light travel beyond crude jump drives. Admiral Kethvar stood and walked to the massive window that dominated the bridge's front wall. Beyond the transparent aluminum, his armada stretched to the horizon. Ship after ship in perfect formation, the combined military might of a dozen star systems, weapons that could crack planets, shields that had never been breached, faster-than-light engines that could cross the galaxy in weeks. Their population centers? Concentrated in large cities, Admiral. No underground bunkers of significance, no orbital defense platforms. They appear to have placed all their military assets in those small vessels we observed. Fascinating, the Admiral mused. In all my years of conquest, I have never encountered a species so unprepared for interstellar conflict. They have barely mastered their own gravity well, and yet they dare to exist in space claimed by the Empire. He turned back to his crew. Perhaps they do not yet understand their situation. Send the standard ultimatum. Captain Veltar activated the communications array. The message would be broadcast on all human frequencies in their dominant languages. The Empire had learned these during their year of observation. People of Earth, the Admiral's voice echoed through the communication system. I am Admiral Kethvar of the Zephyrian Imperial Navy. Your world now lies within the boundaries of our empire. You will surrender unconditionally within 24 hours. Disarm your military forces and prepare to receive Imperial governors. Resistance will result in the complete destruction of your civilization. Comply and your people will be granted the honor of serving the Empire as a vassal species. The transmission ended. Now they would wait for the inevitable surrender. The Admiral had given this same speech over 100 times. The response was always the same. First came denial, then desperate attempts at negotiation, finally acceptance when they realized the hopelessness of their situation. Admiral, Captain Veltar said, studying sensor readings. We are detecting some unusual activity in the outer system. Oh, several large structures near their gas giant. They appear to be industrial facilities, possibly mining operations. The Admiral shrugged. Irrelevant. When we control their world, those facilities will serve the Empire. Postguards around them to prevent sabotage, but focus our main force on the primary target. He returned to studying the tactical displays. Earth hung before them like a blue and green jewel. So small, so defenseless. Its people had no idea that their entire civilization was about to change forever. Within days, their leaders would be replaced with imperial governors. Their military would be disbanded. Their strongest would be taken as slave labor for the mining worlds. Their brightest minds would serve imperial research facilities. The Admiral had seen it happen so many times before. First came the shock of realizing they were not alone in the universe, then terror as they understood the vast power arrayed against them, finally broken acceptance as they submitted to imperial rule. Sir, we are receiving a response from the humans. Admiral Kethavar's attention returned to the present. Already? Most species take several hours to craft their first reply. Play it, a human appeared on the screen. Male, with graying hair and wearing what appeared to be military decorations. Behind him, the Admiral could see other humans working at primitive computer terminals. I am General Harrison, representing Earth's Unified Defense Council. The human said in clear trade language. We have received your ultimatum. We request 24 hours to consider your terms and formulate an appropriate response. The transmission ended. Captain Veltar looked confused. Admiral, that was remarkably calm for a first contact situation. Most species show signs of panic or desperation. Admiral Kethavar waved a dismissive hand. Perhaps they are in shock, or maybe they believe they can negotiate better terms. It matters little. They have asked for time, and I am feeling generous. Let them have their day to say goodbye to their independence. He looked out at his armada once more. 50,000 ships ready to bring another world under Imperial control. Tomorrow, when the humans finally understood their situation, there would be one more star system flying the Imperial banner. Begin final preparations for orbital bombardment, he ordered. When their time expires, I want to be ready to demonstrate the consequences of resistance. The bridge crew began their work with practiced efficiency. They had done this many times before. Tomorrow would bring another easy victory for the Empire. First Contact Protocol General Harrison walked through the underground corridors beneath Colorado's Cheyenne Mountain. The tunnels stretched far deeper than any public record showed. Past the known NORAD facilities, past the classified military levels down to sections that officially did not exist. His security badge opened doors that few humans had ever seen. The elevator descended for nearly 3 minutes before stopping at sublevel 15. When the doors opened, Harrison stepped into a world that would have amazed any surface dweller. The corridor ahead stretched for hundreds of yards, lined with laboratories and command centers buzzing with activity. Scientists and military personnel hurried past carrying data tablets and speaking in hushed, urgent tones. General, Dr. Sarah Martinez appeared at his side as he walked toward the main briefing room. She was a small woman with intense dark eyes and graying hair pulled back in a tight bun. Her security badge showed a clearance level that existed in no official documentation. Status report, Doctor, Harrison said without slowing his pace. All primary systems are coming online ahead of schedule. The outer perimeter installations have been activated. Deep space monitoring confirms the alien fleet is maintaining position near Jupiter's orbit. They seem to be waiting for our response, Harrison nodded. How long since the last update to the Council? The emergency session ended an hour ago. President Chen has authorized full activation of the Saturn Protocol. All world leaders have been briefed on classification-level Omega materials. They entered a vast command center that rivaled anything shown in science fiction movies. Massive screens displayed star charts, tactical readouts, and real-time feeds from monitoring stations throughout the solar system. Hundreds of technicians worked at sophisticated computer terminals. The air hummed with the sound of powerful machinery hidden behind the walls. General Harrison took his place at the central command station. Around him, the most advanced technology on Earth processed information at speeds that made conventional supercomputers look like pocket calculators. "Show me the briefing materials for the President," he said. Dr. Martinez activated a holographic display that materialized above the command table. Three-dimensional images showed the alien fleet in perfect detail. Each ship was mapped down to the individual weapon systems. "Ladies and gentlemen," Harrison addressed the room, "as of 1200 hours today, humanity has made official first contact with an alien civilization. Unfortunately, they appear to have hostile intentions." A murmur ran through the command center. Despite their high security clearances, most of the personnel had never expected this day to actually come. Dr. Martinez stepped forward. "The entity identifying itself as Admiral Kethvar of the Zephyrian Imperial Navy has demanded our unconditional surrender. Analysis of their transmission suggests they view us as a primitive species, incapable of meaningful resistance." "What do we know about their capabilities?" asked Colonel Morrison, the facility's chief tactical officer. "Impressive by conventional standards," Dr. Martinez replied. "Their ships appear to use some form of energy shielding. Their weapon systems include both energy-based and kinetic projectile systems. They possess faster-than-light travel capabilities that seem to rely on spatial folding technology." Harrison watched the tactical displays update in real time. "And their numbers?" "Approximately 50,000 vessels of varying sizes. The largest appeared to be roughly 3 kilometers in length. Total estimated crew complement is somewhere between 2 and 3 million individuals." Silence fell over the command center as the enormity of the situation sank in. 50,000 warships crewed by millions of alien soldiers. It would have been an impossible situation for any conventional military force. "Sir," said Lieutenant Commander Torres from the communication station, "we're receiving priority transmissions from deep space monitoring posts. The alien fleet is beginning to move into attack formation." Harrison nodded calmly. "Expected. They're interpreting our request for time as a delaying tactic." He turned to Dr. Martinez. "Status of the Saturn protocol assets?" "Jupiter Station reports all systems operational. The asteroid field installations are fully powered and awaiting orders. Mars facilities have completed their transformation sequence. All stealth fields are holding steady. And the primary installations?" Dr. Martinez smiled for the first time since the crisis began. "Luna Base confirms that all primary weapon systems are charged and ready. The ring installations around Earth have shed their camouflage and assumed combat configuration. Admiral, we are ready to implement full disclosure protocols." Harrison looked around the room at his staff. These men and women had dedicated their lives to preparing for this exact moment. For over 50 years since the first detection of alien signals from deep space, humanity had been planning and building in secret. "Activate the quantum communication network," he ordered. "Send the prepared message to all major world capitals. It's time to tell our people the truth." Across the Earth, secure communication lines carried the most important message in human history. Presidents, prime ministers, and world leaders learned that the primitive human space program had been an elaborate deception. The small rockets and simple space stations were merely a facade, designed to make humanity appear harmless to any watching alien eyes. The truth was far different. Humanity had been preparing for interstellar conflict for decades. Hidden facilities throughout the solar system housed technologies that would have seemed like magic to surface dwellers. Weapons that manipulated fundamental forces of physics. Defensive systems that could bend space and time. Manufacturing capabilities that could build fleets of starships in weeks rather than years. "Sir," Lieutenant Commander Torres announced, "we have confirmation from all deep space installations. The outer perimeter defense grid is fully operational." Harrison studied the tactical display. What appeared to be simple mining operations around Jupiter were actually the most advanced military installations ever constructed. Asteroid mining facilities were revealed to be massive weapon platforms. Gas collection stations transformed into shipyards housing vessels that dwarfed anything the aliens had brought. "Dr. Martinez, please explain to our guest what they're actually facing." Dr. Martinez activated another holographic display. This one showed the true extent of human military capabilities. Ships emerged from stealth fields around every major planet. Weapon platforms revealed themselves among the asteroids. The primitive orbital stations around Earth unfolded into massive defense platforms bristling with weapons that operated on principles the aliens had never encountered. The quantum resonance. Cannons can destabilize matter at the subatomic level, Dr. Martinez explained. The gravity manipulation systems can create artificial black holes or compress objects down to the molecular level. Our temporal displacement weapons can accelerate time around enemy vessels until they age into cosmic dust in seconds. Harrison watched as the final pieces of humanity's true military might reveal themselves. The aliens had come expecting to conquer a primitive world with chemical rockets and metal projectile weapons. Instead, they found themselves facing a species that had mastered technologies beyond their comprehension. "Send a message to Admiral Kethvar," Harrison ordered. "Inform him that he has exactly 30 seconds to order his fleet beyond the edge of our solar system. Any vessel that remains after that deadline will be destroyed without further warning." "Sir," Colonel Morrison said quietly, "they still outnumber us 50,000 to 1. Harrison smiled grimly. "Colonel, we've had 50 years to prepare for this day. Numbers stopped being relevant the moment they decided to threaten humanity." He looked around the command center one final time. "Gentlemen, ladies, today we show the galaxy what humans are truly capable of when properly motivated." The message transmitted across space at faster than light speeds. Admiral Kethvar would soon learn that his intelligence reports had been catastrophically wrong. Earth was not a primitive world waiting to be conquered. It was the home of a species that had been quietly watching the galaxy and preparing for war since before most of the alien crew members had been born. The countdown began. 30 seconds to decide the fate of 50,000 alien ships. The Revelation Admiral Kethvar stared at the message displayed on his command screen. His mandibles clicked rapidly in confusion and growing anger. The primitive humans were making demands of the Imperial Armada. Him, Admiral Kethvar, conqueror of 100 worlds, was being given an ultimatum by a species that still used chemical rockets. 30 seconds? Captain Veltar read the message again. "Admiral, perhaps this is some form of psychological warfare, an attempt to make us hesitate through sheer audacity." The Admiral's yellow eyes narrowed as he studied the tactical displays. His armada remained in perfect formation around the outer planets. 50,000 ships ready to demonstrate the price of defying the Empire. The humans had perhaps 200 small vessels scattered throughout their system. The mathematics of the situation were absurd. "Sensors," he barked. "Full spectrum analysis of the human positions. I want to know what gives these primitives the confidence to threaten us." The bridge crew worked frantically at their stations. Advanced Zephyrian sensors probed the inner solar system, searching for hidden weapons or defensive installations that might explain the humans' boldness. "Admiral," the sensor officer reported, "we are detecting some unusual energy signatures from the asteroid field between Mars and Jupiter. The readings are inconsistent with mining operations." "Inconsistent how?" "The power output is far too high for simple excavation work. And there are metallic structures hidden among the asteroids that our initial scans missed. They appear to be using some form of stealth technology." Admiral Kethvar moved to the sensor station and studied the readouts himself. The asteroids were indeed showing unusual characteristics. Too uniform in their spacing, too organized in their orbits, and the energy reading suggested massive installations hidden within the rocky bodies. "Show me Jupiter's moons," he ordered. The display shifted to focus on the gas giant and its satellite system. What they had originally cataloged as industrial facilities now revealed themselves under closer scrutiny. The structures were enormous, far larger than necessary for simple gas collection, and they were moving, reconfiguring themselves into new arrangements as the sensors watched. "Those are not mining platforms," Captain Veltar whispered. "Those are shipyards." As if responding to his words, the installations around Jupiter began to unfold. Massive structures that had appeared to be simple gas processors revealed their true nature. Docking bays opened to disgorge vessels that dwarfed even the largest Imperial battleships. Ship after ship emerged from concealment, their hulls gleaming with technologies the Admiral had never seen before. "Impossible," he breathed. "Our intelligence reports showed a primitive civilization barely capable of interplanetary travel." The tactical display updated rapidly as sensors detected more and more human vessels. Not the small metal tubes they had observed before, but massive warships that stretched for miles. Ships with hull configurations that suggested technologies beyond Imperial understanding. "Admiral," the communications officer called out urgently, We are receiving multiple targeting locks from throughout the system. Hundreds of them. Thousands. The main screen displayed the source of the targeting signals. Every asteroid they had dismissed as space debris was lighting up with active sensors. Weapon platforms hidden among the rocks were revealing themselves. Each one was larger than an Imperial cruiser and bristling with armaments that defied classification. "Sir," the sensor officer reported with growing alarm, "the small orbital stations around Earth are transforming." Admiral Kethvar watched in horror as the primitive human space stations unfolded like metal flowers. Simple docking platforms revealed themselves to be massive defensive installations. Weapon ports opened along their surfaces. Shield generators came online with power signatures that rivaled small stars. "How long have they been watching us?" Captain Veltar asked in a hollow voice. The Admiral's hands clenched behind his back. The humans had been feeding them false information for over a year. Every scan, every intelligence report, every tactical assessment had been carefully manipulated. The Empire had been led to believe they were facing defenseless primitives, when in reality they had stumbled into a trap of galactic proportions. "Admiral," the tactical officer announced, "new contacts emerging from stealth fields around Mars. I count over 10,000 vessels, all massive, all showing advanced technology signatures." The display zoomed in on Mars space. What had appeared to be simple mining operations revealed their true nature as military shipyards. Fleets of human warships that had been hidden for months suddenly became visible. Each vessel was equipped with weapon systems that operated on principles Imperial science had never encountered. "Energy readings off the scale," the sensor officer reported. "Admiral, some of these weapons are manipulating space-time itself. Others appear to be destabilizing matter at the quantum level." Admiral Kethvar felt a chill run through his scaled hide. He had devoted his life to understanding military technology. He had studied the weapons of every species the Empire had conquered. Nothing in his experience had prepared him for what he was seeing now. The humans were not primitives who had stumbled into space. They were a species that had mastered technologies the Empire couldn't even comprehend. And they had been watching, waiting, preparing. "Sir," Captain Veltar said quietly, "what are your orders?" The Admiral stared at the tactical display. His 50,000 ships suddenly seemed pathetically small compared to the forces arrayed against them. Human vessels emerged from hiding places throughout the solar system. Weapon platforms revealed themselves among planets and moons. Defensive installations shed their camouflage to show their true, terrible power. "How long have they been planning this?" he whispered. The answer came in the form of another transmission from the humans. This time it was not the military officer who had spoken before, but a woman in what appeared to be scientific garments. "Admiral Kethvar," she said calmly. "My name is Dr. Sarah Martinez. I am the Director of Humanity's Deep Space Defense Initiative. We have been monitoring your Empire's expansion for over 70 years. We have studied your tactics, your technology, and your typical conquest patterns. Everything you have seen of our civilization has been carefully designed to make you underestimate our capabilities." The transmission continued as Admiral Kethvar watched his tactical displays update with more and more human military assets. "The mining operations you observed are actually manufacturing facilities that have been producing warships for decades. The simple space stations are defensive platforms equipped with weapons that can manipulate fundamental forces of physics. The asteroid field has been converted into the largest fortress network in this galaxy's recorded history." Admiral Kethvar's mandibles clicked frantically as the full scope of the deception became clear. The humans had not just hidden their military capabilities. They had created an elaborate fiction designed to lure potential invaders into a false sense of security. "You now have 15 seconds to begin your withdrawal," Dr. Martinez continued. "Any vessel that remains in our solar system after that deadline will be considered a legitimate military target and destroyed accordingly." The Admiral looked around his bridge. His crew stared back at him with expressions of barely controlled panic. They had come expecting an easy conquest of a primitive world. Instead, they found themselves vastly outgunned by a species that had turned their entire solar system into a fortress. "Sir?" Captain Veltar asked again. "Orders?" Admiral Kethvar realized he had two choices. Order a retreat and face the shame of failure before the Imperial Senate, or attack and face the possibility of total annihilation against an enemy that clearly possessed superior technology. His pride made the decision for him. All ships, he broadcast across the fleet communication network. Prepare for immediate assault. Show these humans the power of the Imperial Navy. It was the last order he would ever give. Seconds of annihilation, Admiral Kethvar's attack order echoed across 50,000 ships. Throughout the Imperial Armada, weapon systems came online. Shield generators powered up to maximum strength. Engine exhausts flared brighter as the massive vessels began their advance toward the inner solar system. The Admiral stood rigid on his bridge, watching tactical displays show his fleet moving into attack formation. Thousands of heavy battleships formed the center line. Fast attack cruisers spread out on the flanks. Siege platforms prepared their planet-cracking weapons. It was the same formation that had conquered 100 worlds. The same overwhelming force that had broken every defense the galaxy had ever seen. Target the largest human installations first, he commanded. I want those weapon platforms in the asteroid field destroyed before they can coordinate their fire. Captain Veltar relayed orders throughout the fleet. Targeting computers locked onto the hidden installations among the asteroids. Thousands of energy cannons and missile systems prepared to unleash destruction on a scale that would have shattered continents. Sir, the sensor officer reported, the human vessels are not moving to intercept. They appear to be maintaining defensive positions. Admiral Kethvar smiled grimly. Perhaps the humans were finally realizing the hopelessness of their situation. Their hidden fleet was impressive, but numbers still mattered in space combat. 50,000 Imperial ships against perhaps 20,000 human vessels. The outcome was inevitable. All units report ready for combat, Captain Veltar announced. Weapons charged and locked on target. Fire, Admiral Kethvar ordered. The space around Jupiter erupted with the light of 10,000 suns. Energy beams that could melt through planetary crusts lanced out toward the asteroid field. Missiles with antimatter warheads streaked across millions of miles in seconds. The combined firepower of the Imperial Armada concentrated on the human defensive positions. For a moment, Admiral Kethvar felt satisfaction. No defensive system could withstand such overwhelming force. The humans would see their installations vaporized and finally understand the futility of resistance. Then something impossible happened. The human weapons fired back, but they did not fire energy, beams or missiles or any weapon the Admiral recognized. Instead, reality itself seemed to bend around the Imperial ships. Space twisted in ways that hurt to look at. Time moved in slow, syrupy waves that made thought difficult. The first effect the Admiral noticed was silence. The communication chatter from his fleet simply stopped. Not interference or jamming, but complete absence of signal, as if the ships themselves had simply ceased to exist. Report, he shouted. I need damage assessments from all battle groups. His communications officer worked frantically at her station. Sir, I'm not receiving any responses. All signals are. There's nothing, Admiral. No transmissions at all. Admiral Kethvar stared at his tactical display. The icons representing his ships were disappearing, not showing damage or destruction, but simply vanishing from the sensors entirely. Whole squadrons of vessels that had existed moments before were gone. What's happening to my fleet? The sensor officer's voice cracked with strain. Admiral, I'm reading massive gravitational distortions throughout the combat zone. The human weapons appear to be creating localized black holes. They're compressing our ships down to molecular level. On the main screen, the Admiral watched in horror as a group of his heavy cruisers simply collapsed. Their massive hulls, built to withstand planetary bombardment, folded in on themselves like paper being crumpled. In seconds, vessels that had housed thousands of crew members became spheres of ultra-dense matter, no larger than marbles. Shields, he screamed. Maximum power to all defensive systems. Sir, our shields are useless. These weapons are operating at quantum levels. They're destabilizing the atomic structure of our hull materials. The ship armor is simply ceasing to exist. Admiral Kethvar watched his tactical display with growing terror. Battle groups that had taken decades to build vanished in heartbeats. The pride of the Imperial Navy, warships that had never known defeat, were being erased from existence by weapons that violated every law of physics he understood. Time displacement detected, the sensor officer reported. The humans are accelerating time around selected targets. The Admiral looked up to see one of his escort destroyers aging rapidly. Its hull metal corroded and crumbled as decades passed in seconds. The crew inside experienced lifetimes in moments, growing old and dying before the ship itself crumbled to cosmic dust. Counterattack, he ordered desperately. All remaining ships focus fire on the largest human vessel. The surviving Imperial ships turned their weapons toward a massive human dreadnought that had emerged from behind Mars. Energy beams that could crack moons struck its hull directly. The Admiral held his breath, waiting to see the human ship's destruction. The beams simply stopped. Not absorbed by shields or deflected by armor, but halted in midair as if they had struck an invisible wall. The energy hung suspended in space for a moment, then reversed direction and returned to strike the Imperial ships that had fired them. "They're using spatial manipulation," the tactical officer whispered. "They're bending space around their ships so our weapons can't reach them." Admiral Kethavar realized with crystal clarity that he was not witnessing a battle. He was watching an execution. The humans possessed technologies so advanced that Imperial weapons were not just ineffective, but irrelevant, like a primitive warrior trying to fight a tank with stones and spears. "Full retreat," he shouted. "All ships withdraw immediately." But it was too late. The human weapons had barely begun to show their true capabilities. Across the battlefield, Imperial vessels found themselves trapped in bubbles of altered space-time. Some ships experienced time moving backwards, watching their own shots return to their guns. Others discovered their hulls phasing out of normal reality, becoming ghostly outlines that could no longer interact with the physical universe. The Admiral's flagship shuddered as something grabbed it with invisible hands. Through the bridge windows, he could see space bending around his ship. Stars stretched into long streamers of light. The view of Jupiter twisted into impossible geometric shapes. "We're being pulled into a dimensional fold," Captain Veltar reported, his voice hollow with defeat. "They're moving us outside normal space." Admiral Kethavar stared at his tactical display one final time. Of his 50,000 ships, fewer than a dozen remained. The rest had been destroyed, dissolved, compressed, aged to dust, or simply removed from reality entirely. An armada that had conquered galaxies had been annihilated in less than 30 seconds. "How?" he whispered. "How is this possible?" The answer came in the form of a transmission from the human fleet. Dr. Martinez appeared on his screen again, her expression calm and professional. "Admiral, your species has spent millennia conquering primitive worlds. You've never encountered a civilization that dedicated itself entirely to defensive preparation. For 70 years, humanity has focused all of our scientific advancement on a single goal, ensuring that any species foolish enough to threaten our world would never leave our solar system alive." The Admiral's ship continued to phase in and out of normal reality. Around him, his bridge crew worked frantically at stations that no longer responded to their commands. "We have mastered technologies your empire never imagined," Dr. Martinez continued. "Weapons that manipulate time, space, gravity, and the fundamental forces that hold matter together. We can rewrite the laws of physics in localized areas. We can remove objects from existence itself." Admiral Kethavar tried to speak, but found his voice failing as the dimensional effects around his ship intensified. "You came here expecting to conquer primitives," the human scientist said. "Instead, you found gods of war who have been waiting patiently for someone foolish enough to threaten our home." The transmission ended. Admiral Kethavar's ship completed its transition out of normal space, carrying him and his remaining crew into a dimension where physics worked differently and time had no meaning. The battle for Earth had lasted exactly 11.7 seconds. In that brief span of time, the greatest military force in galactic history had been completely and utterly destroyed. The new galactic order. The news traveled faster than light across the galaxy. In command centers and royal palaces, on military stations and trading posts, the same impossible message arrived within hours of the battle's end. The Zephyrian Imperial Armada, the largest military force ever assembled, had been completely destroyed by a previously unknown species calling itself humanity. On the Zephyrian homeworld, Emperor Vexthul received the report in his crystal palace. The ancient ruler's forearms trembled as he read the tactical analysis transmitted by the few surviving scout ships that had witnessed the battle from the outer edges of the Sol system. 50,000 ships, he whispered to his military advisors. Gone in seconds. High Admiral Zekmor, the Empire's supreme military commander, studied the holographic recordings with disbelief. "Your Majesty, this appears to show weapons that manipulate fundamental forces of reality. Time compression, gravity manipulation, matter dissolution at the quantum level. These technologies should not be possible." Emperor Vexthul watched the recordings again. Imperial battleships that had conquered hundreds of worlds simply vanishing from existence. Massive dreadnoughts compressed into spheres the size of small asteroids. Entire squadrons aged into cosmic dust in heartbeats. "What do we know about this species?" he demanded. "Very little, Your Majesty. Our intelligence reports suggested they were primitives barely capable of interplanetary travel." Clearly, those reports were catastrophically incorrect. The Emperor's scaled skin had turned pale with fear. The Empire had ruled this section of the galaxy for over 3,000 years. No force had ever seriously threatened Imperial dominance. Now, in less than a minute, their entire military structure had been proven utterly inadequate against human technology. "Send a message to all Imperial governors," he ordered. "Full military stand-down. No Imperial vessel is to approach the Sol system under any circumstances." Similar scenes played out across dozens of star systems as word of the battle spread. The Krogani War Council, veteran conquerors who had never known defeat, watched the tactical recordings in stunned silence. Their thick-armored warships, designed to withstand planetary bombardment, had been dissolved like sugar in water by human weapons. On the trading world of Nexus Prime, merchants and smugglers gathered in cantinas to watch news broadcasts showing the impossible footage. Ships that existed one moment and simply didn't exist the next. Weapons that bent space and time itself. A species that had hidden godlike power behind a facade of primitive technology, but it was the message that followed the battle footage that truly changed everything. Dr. Sarah Martinez appeared on screens throughout the galaxy, speaking in the universal trade language that all spacefaring species understood. Behind her, massive human warships hung in space like metal mountains, their hulls gleaming with technologies that hurt to look at directly. "People of the galaxy," she began, her voice calm and measured. "I am Dr. Sarah Martinez, Director of the Terran Defense Initiative. As you have witnessed, the Zephyrian Imperial Armada has been destroyed after attempting to invade our solar system. The transmission continued across thousands of worlds as aliens of every species stopped their activities to listen. Humanity hereby establishes the Terran Protectorate, encompassing all inhabited systems within this galaxy. All military expansion by any species will cease immediately. All aggressive actions against inhabited worlds will result in the complete sterilization of the aggressor's home system." On Velthora Prime, the Vexian Republic's ruling council watched in growing alarm as Dr. Martinez outlined humanity's new galactic policies. "We have been monitoring your civilizations for over 70 years. We possess complete intelligence on every military installation, every weapons system, and every strategic resource in this galaxy. Resistance is not merely futile, it is impossible." Emperor Vexthul sank into his throne as the full implications became clear. The humans hadn't just defeated the Imperial Armada, they had been watching everyone, planning, preparing. No secret was safe from them. No military buildup had gone unnoticed. "However," Dr. Martinez continued, "humanity has no desire for conquest or subjugation. We seek only to establish peace and protect innocent populations from aggressive expansion. Species that demonstrate peaceful intentions will be left to govern themselves as they see fit." The message included detailed specifications for the new galactic order. Trade would continue freely between systems. Scientific research would be shared openly. Cultural exchange would be encouraged. But any attempt at military aggression would be met with immediate and overwhelming response. To demonstrate our capabilities and commitment to galactic peace, observe the following. The transmission switched to show the outer edge of the Zephyrian Empire's territory. 3 heavily fortified star systems that had served as military staging areas for Imperial expansion suddenly experienced what could only be described as controlled stellar engineering. Gas giants were moved into new orbits with casual ease. Asteroid fields were rearranged into geometric patterns visible from light years away. Most impressively, a small star was temporarily dimmed and brightened in a pattern that spelled out "hello" in the universal mathematical language known to all spacefaring species. Across the galaxy, military leaders realized they were not just outgunned, they were facing a species that could manipulate stars themselves. The scale of human power made every other technological achievement seem like cave paintings by comparison. On the Thorian homeworld, their massive defensive installations suddenly seemed pathetically inadequate. Fortress worlds that had never been breached now appeared as vulnerable as undefended colonies. If humans could move gas giants and dim stars, what possible defense could walls and shields provide? The psychological impact was immediate and devastating. Within days, the Krogani War Council voted to disband their assault fleets. The Vexian Republic declared a permanent end to territorial expansion. Even the proud Thorian defensive leagues began dismantling their forward military bases. But perhaps the most significant change came from the Zephyrian Empire itself. Emperor Vexthal, faced with the complete obsolescence of his military forces, made an unprecedented decision. He broadcast a message to all imperial territories announcing the immediate liberation of all conquered worlds. The Empire hereby grants complete independence to all subject species, he declared. Imperial forces will withdraw to the Zephyrian home system. All former imperial worlds are free to govern themselves according to their own customs and desires. The decision sparked celebration on hundreds of worlds. Species that had lived under imperial rule for centuries suddenly found themselves free. The galaxy's largest empire dissolved peacefully rather than face the wrath of humanity. Dr. Martinez's final transmission came 1 week after the battle. This time she stood on the observation deck of a human vessel positioned near the galactic core. Behind her, the spiral arms of the Milky Way stretched into infinity. To all species watching this message, she said, humanity extends an offer of friendship and cooperation. We have no desire to rule over you, but we will not permit any species to rule over others through force. The age of galactic conquest is over. The transmission included coordinates for diplomatic contact and specifications for peaceful interaction with human representatives. Trade agreements, scientific exchanges, and cultural programs were offered to any species interested in cooperation rather than conflict. Within months, embassies were established throughout the galaxy. Former enemies began working together under the protection of the Terran Protectorate. Scientific advances shared freely between species led to technological leaps that benefited everyone. The humans, having revealed their true capabilities, gradually became less mysterious. Diplomatic missions learned that Earth's population was genuinely peaceful, preferring exploration and discovery to conquest and domination. The fearsome weapons that had destroyed the Imperial Armada were used to clear asteroid hazards from shipping lanes and neutralize dangerous space phenomena. Years later, historians would mark the Battle of Sol as the moment the galaxy truly entered the modern age. Not because of the destruction of the Imperial Armada, but because of what followed. For the first time in galactic history, all species lived without fear of invasion or conquest. The universe had found its guardians, and those guardians asked for nothing more than the chance to explore the stars in peace.